Welcome to the Crypto and Blockchain Talk.
Hello.
Hey.
Guten Tag.
Aloha.
Hola. Shalom.
Hello.
Namaste.
Ni hao.
Privet.
Hello.
Salut. Yassas.
Salve.
Ciao.
Bonjour. Our podcast talks about the latest trends in the worlds of cryptocurrencies and the blockchain.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Crypto and Blockchain Talk. Today with me, I have a gentleman from a project called Threefold. And if you want to have a look at their website, it's threefold.io. And the person I'm going to be speaking to, his name is Kristof de Spiegeleer. But in the first instance, let's welcome Kristof to Crypto and Blockchain Talk. Kristof, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here.
How long have you been in the blockchain world?
From the beginning, I would say, but we did like storage systems for the cloud, and blockchain just came as one of these things that I did to. Obviously, it was super interesting when Bitcoin came, and from the beginning, it was, you could feel the promise of something new, how lots of people could work together in creating a new world. It didn't completely go as I had expected. Some of it is better, some of it is worse, but it's super interesting for sure. So from day one, actually.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. So tell us the story about Threefold.
When I came out of university, the internet was just there. It was super exciting. And I saw it like gradually moving in directions, which were different, where it became more centralized. And that's actually where the idea of Threefold came from. We didn't call it Threefold at that time. It were predecessors, and there were different company names, and most of these companies also got acquired. But the idea stayed exactly the same, which was, how can we build a new internet owned by all of us together? Really how it was meant to be in the beginning. And that's our passion. But so that's an old idea. And then, but we needed many iterations and many different startups to build pieces of it. This current iteration, I would say, which we got spinned off, we have an incubator. But this company was taken out of the incubator about 4 years ago and spun off. But the name was 5-6 years, I think, something like that. Because at the beginning, the internet was cool, actually. People were just connecting boxes everywhere, and it was still not even having a nice interface like it is today. And that's where it came from, which was like, how can we sort of automate that better, make everyone part of it, take the technology out of it? Because as the internet was growing, so many things were obviously broken, to do with storage, to do with performance, to do with power usage, as an example. Especially automation was a big disaster. So our holy grail was always like, how can we build an internet which is self-healing, autonomous? You don't have to do all that complicated stuff. And I think the most important part is, how can we do it so that everyone is part of it? And that idea is 25 plus 30, maybe even years old. Yes.
Well,
of course, going to the blockchain parts of it, I mean, at that time there was no blockchain, there was no money, so it was using things at that time just like it was possible. But that's why we were looking at, when blockchain came, it was like, oh, wait a minute, this now is opening up things, how to deal with identity and how to deal differently with money. And that's how we started integrating our Threefold idea with blockchain. When I came out of university, I was lucky. There was actually the first ISP in the world was called PSINet. And I was very lucky that I could go and work there, to be there at the start. It was really the start of the internet. It was the first ISP. For them, I've built data centers in Europe with its world records at that time. So I was extremely lucky, to be at that spot when everything started happening. Until 2000, it was amazing. It was like a dream. Everything was possible. You could build anything. It was very weird. I mean, it's a little bit what you would see now, and the excitement of like in blockchain was there then at the internet. Everything was crazy. People were doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And that's what we feel now in blockchain as well. And that's where it came from. But it became something different than what the beginning was. But it was exciting. It was super exciting.
you've been in this arena for a long time. Are you a techie?
I'm a very technical nerd, yes.
You're a super nerd.
Yeah. So I'm coding since I'm 8 or 9, something like that. Commodore
Really?
64 for the people who know that machine, yeah. Actually, I was probably a bit of a weird kid, and the computer was much more how should I say, easy to understand than life around me. So that's how I got into programming and understanding everything. And it's that combination of knowing computers very well and then what happened with the internet, which got me so hooked to it. I stayed more at the back end of the internet, the things you see less, but like how do you make it more automated or more efficient or using less energy, improve storage, that we did that a lot. But I was just lucky to be like a nerd coder at the right time, and then the internet started. Yeah, it was wonderful. In the beginning, what most people don't know, the internet was extremely decentralized. We were using different protocols. People were on Unix machines, and there were no firewalls. People didn't have to think about security. It was a very different time. I remember in the first ISP, maybe I'm not supposed to say that, but they had their accounting system onto the internet unprotected. Just at that time, everything was just possible.
So you were like this super nerdy kid programming in like the Flemish part of Belgium. That's pretty awesome. And you know what? As you were talking, I just went onto your GitHub. I wanted to have a look. I thought, let's see how much of a super
well, even
nerdy.
more.
Yeah,
it's very funny because this is like a hobby, right? Programming, but I was, what was it? In the top 20 committers in Belgium or something, the number of lines of code written. So that's kind of funny. I was like, okay. But yeah, it's just, I like coding because it's very creative. It's like you write, you create an idea and it comes to life, and doing that with a bunch of friends and building what we're building. It's just super cool. It's just nice to do.
Oh, that's really neat. So, okay. So who then did you work for before you started Threefold? I know you mentioned obviously one of the ISP providers, but where else have you have you been around the block a few times, or where else have you been?
It's a little funny story, but when I came out of university, no one wanted to hire me. I just didn't find a job. So basically, I came out of university and I was doing holiday job with computers. Again, it was really the beginning of even computers, the personal computer. And I went to my boss at that time and I said, look, no one wants to hire me. Can I come and work here? But he said, yeah, but you did something very different. University did and that. I said, I don't mind. So he gave me a shop, just a normal computer shop. And he said, look, this thing is making a loss. Can you turn it around? I said, okay, I don't know how that works, but let's dive in. And that was the beginning of my career. But it got me to see a lot and learn how to sell as well. So it was a very good thing. And then I got headhunted out of that shop basically to go and work for that internet service provider. Then I stayed there. Well, the funny part is I was hired. And then I had to start like 3 months later or something. And within a month, I was fired, believe it or not. So I was like, okay, how do I do that? So then I had lucky. In my life, there were always people helping me out because, to be honest, I was a little bit of an idiot. And too much of a nerd, the world was sometimes too strange. And there was this lady of England and she said, Kristof, what the heck did you do? I said, yeah, I just don't understand. I mean, I come and work there and I'm already fired. And she said, you must have to know something. I said, no, not that I know. I said, okay, Kristof, now you can do two things, right? She said, you can leave because if the CEO fires you, you probably have to go. Or you can put revenue behind your name. Smart, of course, words from that lady. So they hid me in the company. So they didn't know anymore that I existed. And about, I think, 3-4 years later, we had 1/3 of the European revenue behind my name. And I was like, okay, I'm back. So that's how it all started. But it was a crazy time. I mean, I didn't exist, so I could go anywhere, do anything I wanted because it didn't exist anything. I just had to make sure I had the revenue and we were making margin. But we were building so fast. We were doing huge websites. And it was this time you would just go somewhere. I remember there was a very big newspaper in London, really big. And I said, Kristof, we have this competitor and they became the biggest website or something about news. You need to do the same thing for us. How much does it cost? And I had to explain, say, yeah, but it kind of doesn't work that way. It's not because you're going to pay me more or less that you will have a successful website. That was that time. It was insane. So yeah, that's how I rolled into it. And 2000, I started my own startups. And that's, I would say, when it became all very concrete, because already then in PSI, the idea of Threefold was happening. We were building the data centers, putting the boxes in there, getting it all to work together, automating a lot. And then 2000, we started doing the same within our own companies. That's a little bit in a nutshell what happened.
Right. So, I mean, that's absolutely hysterical. So let's go to now present day. You have Threefold, which we're going to get into really everything about Threefold in a moment. But let's first talk about technology versus the crypto, because I did see on your website that you obviously have the cryptocurrency to go with the project, the cryptocurrency that supports the project. So was it the technology, blockchain technology, that really got you kind of in full throttle to go forward with the Threefold idea? Or was the idea of the cryptocurrency and creating this currency, which would be part of also creating a revenue stream, do you think that held as much interest to you, if not a greater interest in the technology itself, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a brilliant question. My first thing was like, I like Bitcoin. And still today, I mean, okay, there are downsides with energy usage and all of that, but it's still one of the more decentralized tokens, right? It really works in a kind of very neat way. And I was like, okay, I don't like the power usage. I don't like the fact that there is nothing behind. There is no real asset behind. So the vision and the idea and the dream was like, can't we make a currency which is backed by the biggest commodity in the world, which is internet capacity, right? Internet, we can't live with more. It's everywhere. So what if we can create a currency, a new currency, which is backed by the storage and this compute and the network you need to be on the internet? And that was the idea, actually. It was more tough than I thought because lawyers kept on telling me you can do this, not this, and whatever. So we had to be, but it took us 3 generations to figure out how to get the tokenomics right. But this combination of having a valuable, so the dream was, how can we create a currency which is then backed by real capacity? And still today, because wouldn't that be amazing? Because even $1 or €1, right? It's a belief at the end. And then currencies can go all over the place. But what if it would be backed by something? And I think that's now what we eventually got to. And now it will even be officially an utility token. So, which means that it will be in Switzerland, but it basically means that it's recognized as a true utility, which is awesome. So that was one of the big motivations. And then, of course, this full but how do you do that? How do you link storage and compute and network to a currency? What is that link? So it was an exciting journey, but we had to do it in 3 steps. We got a lot of feedback from the community. That's now, I think, 4 or 5 years we were trying and getting feedback and improving it to what we have now. And now we're comfortable, generation 3, and we go. But the currency part is very important. And of course, what it does, right? Because so people who connect, because we didn't talk about that, but what is it? So people can just buy any computer. You download our software, you connect it to the current internet, and now this box generates compute, storage, network capacity for the internet. It's like a solar panel almost, just like a solar panel would produce electricity for the people around you. Our internet box, which is any computer, would now produce capacity for the internet. That's a side of the farming. We call it farming, not mining, because we want to make it a little bit more light. So we call them digital farmers. These are people who make Threefold tokens by farming. And then we have the other side of the spectrum where you as a user, not a user, but a developer or a software company or so, can buy these Threefold tokens to then basically spend them and getting that capacity for your applications. And that way we came to a wonderful currency, actually, which has been made for the internet and the internet capacity. But who knows, maybe in the future it will be used for much more.
So how many people are currently on your platform? How many farmers do you currently have?
Farmers, I don't know, but it's about 18 or 90,000 cores. So that's like compute cores. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot of storage, I think 90 million gigabyte of storage. And that's independent farmers. So that's now for 3 years. And now every day, quite a lot of boxes are being added. So that's where we are today. In 50-something countries. Yeah, if you want to see it, you just go to explorer.threefold.io. I mean, it's on the website, and then you see how much there is.
Yeah. Oh, very good. Okay, but I don't understand one thing. When it comes to the data storage, when you guys are obviously allowing people to come then and use that the capacity that's being created to be utilized by companies then to obviously store their data. Yeah, I mean, that's what you guys are doing. Yeah, so what companies are coming to you and saying, hey, listen, we're going to be ditching AWS and we want to use you guys instead? Or is there, how is that happening? Who are the clientele, I guess you'd say, who are looking to utilize the product that you guys are creating?
Yeah, well, we see ourselves like a real layer 0 for blockchain, like the lowest level on which you can install anything. Anything which runs on Linux can run on this platform. So this can be blockchain, IoT, metaverse, storage, name it, really everything. And as such, we can help like blockchain companies, as an example, which we do for some of them very closely even. We can help them to scale more, to be more decentralized. We can optimize their storage workloads. And that's how people use it. So we don't actually even know what they're doing with it. We just see how they're using that compute, network, and storage capacity and how that moves. But there's actually three things we do. One is just compute, right? Like you can put it now on many places in the world, and it would be more close to where your end users are. It's cost effective. It's also carbon negative. So we take more carbon out of the air than basically which is being added because of the computers. That's the compute side. Then we have the storage side, and that was basically part of your question, I guess. Storage, that's, I think, one of the main things we had to do. This is literally many iterations and tens of years of work, actually, to come to where we are today. We have a quantum-safe storage system. So it's a storage system which goes over multiple nodes. That's not blockchain. It's a different type of technology. It gives you more control over where the storage is, but it's still done. It's not using copies or so because that's not efficient enough. But it's a system which is so safe that not even a quantum computer can hack into it because it doesn't have enough pieces to work with. And that's a fundamentally important part of the system because this allows you to store your data or to store anything actually on top of a public network in such a way that you are still guaranteed the only one who can put it on and who can take it off. And the third part, we have is network. We have this peer-to-peer network, which allows you to use the existing internet or a peer-to-peer link, or you can literally make a connection with your neighbor, and it would reroute all your traffic end-to-end encrypted. So that way you have the three primitives, the encrypted overlay end-to-end network, you have the storage system where a quantum computer cannot even break into, and then you have the compute layer, which is everywhere and provided by lots of people. So that's in a nutshell how it works.
Who wrote the blockchain? Is that you who wrote that?
Originally, we made our own blockchain. Yes, we started from a project from another company we were working together with called SIA. Then we made a fork of that one and we improved it. We actually had, I think, one of the first proof of block stake blockchains in the world at that time. But then we realized it's actually a lot of work to maintain a blockchain code. So eventually now we are running, we decided to run on Cosmos and we also run on Substrate. So we use both for different parts and we're extending it a lot. And towards the future, what we will see. And because we have the system where there are multiple layers of blockchains as well to make it like super scale. Yeah, one of the things which actually give you a little bit of a preview, which the world doesn't even know yet, but what we are going to do next is that it won't be one internet capacity, it will be an internet of internets. So basically people will be able to deploy their own internet. And each internet is by itself like unbreakable, which is more marketing than, but it means that it's super hard to bring it down and it's very safe. So then we'll have like thousands of interconnected internets if you want. And each of them has this full-blown capability of bringing applications and everything into where people are. So people together own their own internet. That's where we're evolving into.
And you're fully decentralized, is that correct?
Yes, of course, it goes in steps. Certain things are super decentralized. Like today, people just are adding things and the farming goes and all of that is very well. But we still have to do some more steps for sure. Our aim is that by the end of this year, I hope to be there with the Internet of Internet. So that's like one more step of decentralization, where everything is run by DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations. So yeah, it's steps. Also to keep it safe, we have to go in steps. But yeah, eventually in the not too far future, we won't be needed anymore. I hope maybe writing some more code and doing some more promotions, but that's it. That's the idea, yes.
I mean, once you get to that level of being, I guess what you would say is super decentralized, well, then it takes on life of its own. And then you really do, well, I guess you start your next project then, right? You're off into the future.
No, I think it will keep us busy for a long time because we're now working with some countries, as an example, where we're building the full layers. Like we have an incredible metaverse project coming on top, which is a beautiful. We will do lots of things on top. So this is, I think, my lifetime project. It's just this base layer. I call it the energy layer. Is just a start. This just allows us to build lots of things on top. And it needs to now really become community driven. That's also why we're here. And we want to do it in many more places where we motivate and find communities and work with them because we want them to do it, right? We just want to give them the idea and say, that's where you find the code. That's where you find some manual. And now, just go and build your own internet. Right? It will keep us busy. And then we will build layers on top. There is still a lot to be done before we have 100% internet for all the layers, which is owned by all of us. But that's the plan. That's the dream. Have a people's owned internet, which basically has everything there in your neighborhood, let's say, linked to you, where you are the only one having access to your data, completely sovereign. That's the eventual vision, and it won't take that long. We're now working with a country where we're probably going to deploy this, so it's going in the right direction. That country is with the president, and they are going to let us do a lot, actually, and it will be really insane. But it's amazing because that is a country where there is only $1,000 GDP per person per year, okay?
Jesus.
Which is not much.
No.
Yeah. But if you go there, it's pure. People are so close to nature. It's honestly one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. It's extremely beautiful. It's very pure. And we went to the president and said, look, can we help you to bring prosperity in your country that you don't have to go to heavy industry? You can keep your country pure. And I believe through digital technologies and what we're building with the internet, we can do so. We can bring education back into more education in your country. We can bring so many things to the benefit of the people in your country, and it becomes easy for them to raise the GDP, because most internets today are GDP negative. They take more money out of the country than they provide, right? Because if you are a country, not America, let's say, because that is of course different, then a lot of the services will not be in your country. So for your GDP, it's negative. You're paying a lot of money for the internet, and actually a lot of things your people pay for, your citizens, goes out of the country. So one of our aims is to turn that around and say, look, why, if you have your own internet with your own applications, it will become GDP positive, not negative. We met a group of people, and they're working on a metaverse. And they showed me the metaverse, and I was like, wow, that's like the nicest metaverse I've ever seen. It's beautiful, really. The quality is super high, and it's not like just some game or some of them look a little bit even childish and not so nice. But this one is like literally an extension of our life, and it's incredibly beautiful. So we're now working with them and even helping them to grow, and it will be a part of our blockchain, of our network. So these metaverse backend capabilities, and I'll explain a bit more what that means in a sec, will be part of our network. And one of the reasons we're doing that, there are millions of GPUs coming available from Ethereum, because Ethereum changes their protocol, right? And this will allow us to, a lot of farmers, a lot of people can then use their GPUs for another purpose. Because what we're going to do, to get a metaverse rendering properly, if you do it in a phone, it really doesn't look good. If you do it in a desktop or a browser, it doesn't look very good. But if you render it in a render farm, it can look brilliant, extremely pretty, but it's rather heavy on GPU cycles, and you need the boxes to be close to you. But that's exactly what we do, right? Because we put boxes everywhere. These are like neighborhood clouds. Even if you would, like we just did a deal in Dubai where we linked it to 170 homes. So if you live in that compound, you basically have a supercomputer next to you. Wow. So we would be rendering games and rendering metaverses from the Threefold grid. And then the output of the rendering comes onto your phone or basically comes onto your browser. So in a nutshell, what it can do is that anyone who wants to do metaverse can build it on top of this platform, which we will now have and will bring live, to get the most beautiful rendering ever done. And what these guys will do is also very nice. Their metaverse is not one where you have to pay for something. Actually, you will be paid if you bring something to the metaverse. So if you bring your home in the metaverse, or you digitize, they have building tools, something nice around you, then they will let it come alive, not only in a very beautiful way, but you will receive tokens for that in return as well, because you've added something to this metaverse. So our aim is to extend the world to become like a beautiful, like real life metaverse, but also with art pieces and so many more things. So that will be an add-on for our network. We expect that this will get our network to multiply many, many times, and that it will be a room for maybe 1 million plus GPUs to come online, so that we can have this massive distributed GPU rendering farm, which is owned by everyone, right? So not owned by a big company like Google, but a community-owned rendering farm for metaverse and gaming purposes. Another project I like a lot, and it's so amazing. It's a project called Sikana, and it's an educational system, and they have 4 billion views. 4 billion times people looked at their educational content, right? It's absolutely insane. But you know what happened? Now comes the funny part. This company didn't make it. Well, it depends, they did, but at one point they almost didn't make it because their costs of doing it on Amazon were simply too high. They couldn't afford the growth they were going through. And that's how they found us. So we found them because we're now very close to them. We're now actually, they joined our community. It's wonderful people. And so this is also going to be one of these things now being native part of the grid. But there are like 20 more of those. But this means that this content, like it's thousands of very nice educational videos with multiple parts and in multiple languages, as many languages, with the 4 billion views, will now be anywhere where our cloud is, so that everyone has access to it. So even if you are in a faraway island and the network connection is very poor, you still will have a high-speed connection to that content close to you, and people can keep on expanding it, right? So it can grow. So that's like another one, which is a very nice one, actually.
With your background and with the company going the way it's going and the kinds of partnerships and things which I know that are probably going to be happening in the future, you must have investors lining up at your doors.
So far, about $50 million went into the project, but this was not from big investors. This was, I'm not saying it was planned that way, but we have lots of farmers who bought hardware and invested. We put money in. And then we have now about 80 investors, friends of friends, really. Wow. So it became a very community-driven funding effort too. And now, we're now doing the next fundraise. We were just starting actually for 60 million in Threefold Tech. It will be, we call it our last fundraise, right? This is the last fundraise to get to 100% decentralization, where this internet can be deployed by anyone, right? Anyone needs to be able to deploy their own internet. How cool is that? Anywhere in the world with everything, right? That's the aim of the last fundraise. And that's where we are. And to be honest, of course, we're talking with people about this. And to be honest, I don't know yet what the right target is. Where is it still going to be more community based? Maybe, but then maybe it takes more time. Or will it be from some people who really like what we do and they want to be part of it? But for sure, there's one thing important though. Who, of course, this money is now super important to us. But whoever the investor is, it needs to be in line to what we call the 3 Ps. And what do I mean with that? Planet first, then it's about the people, so the community, and then it's about ourselves. And that I find really important, because with everything happening out there, how can we not do that? The first thing, no matter what we do, we need to make sure it's good for Mother Earth, right? And then it's about the people on Mother Earth. And then eventually we as an investor or as founders, obviously by doing the right thing, we will also make money. But it cannot be just about, I give you $1 million and I get 10 million back. No, there needs to be a little bit more purpose behind. That's the only thing we find very important. But look, I hope someone is listening to this and they feel the truth behind these words, and they contact us, because that is our last funding round. I hope ever in my life, honestly.
Well,
to do what we're doing.
Yeah, never say last one. Because never say never, because it never happens like that.
Yeah. There's maybe one thing which is interesting, which is if you think about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is still, it's the root coin, right? It's where everything started from, and as such, that holds a lot of value. But yes, today supposedly doing one transaction costs $100 in energy. Okay, which is of course insane. But with what we're doing with the internet and how it's going to work, it won't be needed anymore. The system we're building allows tokens to be wrapped into the grid in such a way that you can still in all safety do Bitcoin transactions, but actually that won't have to happen in the Bitcoin network. So they happen like independently, and it's like an automatic treasury of Bitcoins, which means that people in each of our internets, they would be able to still trade Bitcoins at almost no transaction cost, with no energy cost, and it's still the absolute same Bitcoin. It's still completely linked to it, and that maybe could be a future of some of these projects, because they hold a lot of value because where they came from, but you resolve the energy problem and the transaction fee problem.
Let me just ask then, what about speed on your project? How does the speed of anything, what's that like compared to anything else out there?
Yeah, well, it's a different architecture. I believe, I look at the planet, at the world as, let me see, nature really as that's the role model to me.
Mm-hmm.
And in nature, it's organisms working together, and you have many of them, right? Mm-hmm. You make something scalable by having lots of different communities, if you want, or different groups. And right now, there is this weird thing I don't understand. Why is everyone so obsessed with, number of transactions per second in one massive big blockchain? No, to me, of course, there are people like Cosmos and others doing it that way. It needs to be like the internet of the blockchains, which is what Cosmos does, or some others do that too. And that's the right direction. Now, we do that not only for blockchain, we do that for compute and storage and network and blockchain backend, if you want. We can help blockchains to become much faster. We're now doing that for some of them. And as such, it will scale forever because you will just have multiple regions if you want. So there could be an internet for Miami. There could be an internet for, I don't know, an island somewhere, Ibiza, I'm just saying something. So each of them could have their completely independent blockchain, internet capacity, applications, metaverse, knowledge, name it, everything. Even if they would cut the cables, it would still be fully functioning, even for a Bitcoin. So that allows us to allow other blockchains to link into what we've built then into such an area, and into the area it goes very fast. You can easily have a couple of hundred transactions per second, which for such a region is more than enough. And of course you won't have one blockchain with many of them. So that, I believe, is a much more scalable model. You just end up with thousands and thousands of different regions in which you have enough capacity.
In terms of bringing your solution to countries, and that layer zero, as you said, this internet of internets, and I mean, these are pretty historic and significant movements within this space. The word metaverse is being awfully abused. It's being overused, and everybody, it's kind of like, you remember, I don't know if you remember, but do you remember there was like an iced tea company in New York, the Long Island iced tea company? They wanted to get their stock levels. They wanted to increase their stock prices. So they renamed themselves Long Island Blockchain Iced Tea Company or something. And it actually worked. Like their stock prices went up because blockchain was the word of the moment. I feel like people are kind of doing that with metaverse, unless they're actually unless they're actually utilizing metaverse in its form and its name correctly. And obviously it sounds like you guys are, but in terms of all those things which countries want to harness the power of right now, how do you see countries developing the metaverse for the good of their people?
Yeah. Well, look, to me, to your point, metaverse is a hyperport, but you always have that with everything which happens. Mm-hmm. What is a metaverse? To me, it's an interface around, it's like a different way how to interact with the system, right? VR, AR, the combination of that. And you can call that a metaverse. Okay, good. But at the end, there should be no difference between using a VR interface or a web interface or a chat interface. It all should go back to you, where you have your own, not just identity, but your own data, your own identity, your own everything in that new internet. So it's a way how to look at that. And then, if the metaverse means it's an interface which maybe makes certain things like education or meeting better, then why not? Now, for countries, to me, much more important to the countries, a couple of things actually. But one is, and we're not talking to quite some, and we feel what's really resonating. But number one is sovereignty, right? Countries do want their data and their influence back into their country. There's a lot of manipulation on the internet. It hurts them. A lot of data goes away, money goes away, and they want to have that back because in a way they don't have their own internet. They have long cables to an internet, but it's not theirs. And this is clearly something they want. And they don't have enough cash, especially not now, to do it themselves. So through decentralization and giving that power to their own people, they're still way better off than what's happening today. And the second thing is GDP positive. So their internet today is for them GDP negative. So they lose more money than they win because of the internet. And that sounds counterintuitive. It should be the reverse. But it isn't, because their own citizens are constantly on services outside of the country. And a lot of money leaves the country, have to go over satellite or long cables. Mm-hmm. That, again, with the same cost, especially as an emerging country. Well, it's amazing. You get influence back in your country. Your data goes back into your country. It becomes much faster. You don't have to go over the overloaded internet lines anymore. And your GDP goes up per person. So that's why they're intrigued. Now, we want to do it in a very nice way. So this is like, we help them to how to get there, but it needs to be a decentralized movement. It's not like, the country is going to do it. No, it's about we together show it to the people in the country, to their citizens. And then because of what it brings to them, they can do it themselves. And they can make money by doing so, right? If they put boxes somewhere in a poor village, that box will now make money for that village.
You know, I definitely think you're one to watch with both eyes. We've got to keep a close eye on you. And I do think that with the ideas that you have, and if they're actually implemented and if countries actually start using these ideas, that would be really exciting. So if there's any further developments here, can we have you back on here? And can you tell us if there's going to be, we would love to have you back.
I promised it, didn't I? So I have to do it now. I promise I come back.
Excellent, because I have a feeling you might have some major news for us. I'm a little bit telepathic at this moment. So, Kristof, I want to thank you so much for coming on to Crypto and Blockchain Talk. It's been a real pleasure, and finding out about your project and about you. And I can only just imagine little you programming away in the field of the countryside where you were raised. I have this image in my head that's quite pure. So I'm really impressed by your journey and where you are now. So listen, I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I would like to thank everyone for tuning into this week's edition of Crypto and Blockchain Talk. Please remember to tell your friends and family to download this beautiful podcast and so many more on their favorite podcasting platform. The full list is on cryptoandblockchaintalk.com. There's over 70 different podcasting platforms there. Furthermore, these podcasts are also streamed on our sister radio station, crypto24radio.com. That's crypto24radio.com. We also love to hear from you. So if you want to communicate with us, we have our social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, but we love to hear from you directly. So please email us at education@savvydigital.com. That's education@savvy, S-A-V-I-I, digital.com. Again, when you tune into us, we are so excited and we're so happy that you listen to us because your attention means the world. The fact that you have so many choices and you choose us, believe it or not, makes us incredibly happy. So please be safe, take care, and goodbye for now.